Alright, so you're getting 5 points in the calculator. So my original is f of x. Alright, so we'll go ahead and we'll graph that one first. Okay, there's my graph. Hopefully that's what y'all got. Alright, so here's your graph. What line is this in the green? F of x, y equals x, linear equation. Okay, that's what it reflects across. Okay, that's what it's going to reflect across. So to find the inverse, we switch our x and our y. So I have x, f inverse of x. So your x's are now your y's are now your x's. 8, 5, 4, 5, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And not much is going to fit on here. So those of you that have it drawn, can you tell me the domain of the original function in interval notation? No, sorry. How about inequalities? What's your domain? I'll start you out. All real numbers, is that what you mumbled? Okay. X equals all real numbers. What is your range as an inequality? Okay. Y is greater than or equal to 4. See how there's no infinities written with the y? So quit writing infinities with the inequalities. Now we look at the red one. What's the domain of the red one? Or the inverse? X is greater than or equal to 4 because it's actually touching 4. And then what's your range? All real numbers. Alright, so your x's became your y's, or whatever. Your x's and y's switched for the domain and the range also. The domain was all real numbers. That domain turned into the range. Range is y is greater than or equal to 4. That turned into the domain for your inverse. Okay, now, again, what test did we run to see if a function's inverse was a function? Horizontal line test. Alright, so if I draw a line here, does it pass the horizontal line test? No. So that tells us that the inverse of this is not going to be a function. Yep. Why doesn't it? Because the pink line touches the blue line twice. So like vertical line test can only touch it once. Same thing with the horizontal. Okay. If it passes the vertical line test and the horizontal line test, what is that function now called? 1-to-1. Good, you remembered. Okay. So I just said that the inverse is not a function. But what we can do is we can restrict the domain of the original one and turn the inverse into a function. So, wrong stuff. Here's what we can do. So we can restrict the domain to get the inverse to be a function. Okay? So here's what that means. I'll write it down and then I'll say what it means. if I restrict something, that means I'm only going to be looking at part of it. Okay, I'm only going to look at part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this quadratic in half right here. Okay, I'm going to cut it in half right there. So we can then take either part. We got this part on the left, which your domain would be negative infinity to 4. Okay, so that's for the left part. Or what we could do is we could take this right-hand part, in which case it would be 4 to infinity, depending on which one. Okay? So I'm talking about both pieces now. This is now 2 pieces. If I go negative infinity to 4, that's the part I'm talking about. Okay? Now, if I go negative infinity to 4, am I talking about the top part of the inverse or the bottom part of the inverse? The bottom part. Okay. So if we go negative infinity to 4, we got the bottom of the inverse. So if I go 4 to infinity, I would get the top part. What do you think? You're sure? Okay. So then let's go